Let me ask you something that sounds like a stupid question until you actually think about it. The moment your heart stops, the moment the official line is crossed and someone in scrubs writes a time on a clipboard and your body becomes a different legal category of object. In that moment and in the minutes that follow, is anything still happening? Is anything still registering? Is there, in any meaningful sense of the word, still a you? Because the answer science is arriving at is more disturbing than yes or no. It's, we're not sure. And what we do know suggests the line between alive and dead is not a line at all. It's a hallway. And some people, it turns out, spend a significant amount of time walking down it before the door at the end closes. Let me tell you what actually happens. Not the comfortable version, the accurate one. Your heart stops. That's the moment most people recognize as death. The clinical definition, the one that gets written on death certificates, the one that makes doctors look at their watches. But the heart stopping is not the brain stopping. Those are two different events separated by time. And what happens in that gap is what nobody wants to talk about in polite company. Within 2 to 20 seconds of the heart stopping, consciousness is lost. Measurable brain activity has been recorded, ceasing within 20 to 40 seconds. So from your perspective, the perspective of the you that has opinions and preferences and a running internal monologue, the lights go out fast. That part is probably a mercy. But here is where it gets strange. Because lights going out and lights being gone are not the same thing. There have been persistent reports in the clinical literature of brain activity resurging minutes after the loss of blood pulse. These end-of-life electrical surges were initially believed to be artifacts, but are now recognized as reflecting real high-frequency brain activity. They are found in roughly half of critically ill patients who die, but importantly are not found in brain-dead patients. Read that last part again, not found in brain-dead patients. Only in patients who are in the process of dying. Something is generating those signals, something the dead brain doesn't do, something the actively dying brain apparently does on its own. A 2023 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences monitored the brain activity of 4 comatose patients as life support was withdrawn. In the 30 seconds to 2 minutes after their ventilators were removed, 2 of the 4 patients showed surges in gamma waves. Interestingly, this gamma activity appeared organized. The waves in one part of the brain were associated with predictable patterns in other regions. Organized. That word is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Random electrical noise is what you'd expect from a dying system. Organized activity is what you'd expect from a system that is doing something. The surge took place in the temporoparieto-occipital junctions, which are linked to vision, hearing, and out-of-body experiences. Not the parts of the brain associated with breathing or heart regulation or basic survival functions. The parts associated with perception, with experience, with the felt sense of being somewhere. Now here is the uncomfortable implication nobody in the study is willing to fully say out loud. If gamma waves represent organized consciousness, and they are our best electrical marker for it, and those waves are surging in the perception centers of a dying brain, then something was being perceived by someone in a brain that the hospital had already declared non-functional. Survivors of cardiac arrest have reported having powerful, lucid experiences, including a perception of separation from the body, observing events without pain or distress, and a meaningful evaluation of their actions and relationships. These are not vague impressions. These are structured memories. People come back and describe specific details of their own resuscitation, what the doctors were wearing, what they said, where they stood. Details they had no way of knowing with their eyes closed and their hearts stopped. One man reported he could see a nurse and doctor, a bald, chunky fellow dressed in blue hospital scrubs. He watched as they frantically worked on his body. He would later tell researchers that he could see an unfamiliar woman beckoning from a corner up near the ceiling. He remembered thinking he couldn't get up there, and then suddenly he was up there looking down at himself. His heart had stopped. His brain had flatlined. He was watching his own resuscitation from the ceiling, and the doctors who reviewed his medical chart confirmed the details. The scrubs, the positioning, the shock administered. All accurate, all described by someone who was, by every clinical measure, dead. 40% of patients in one large study showed brain activity consistent with consciousness even 60 minutes into CPR. 39% of survivors recalled aspects of their treatment or transcendent experiences of death. 60 minutes, an hour, into CPR, into the period when, by all prior understanding of human physiology, the brain should be dark and quiet and chemically breaking down. It isn't. Now, back to the original question. Does it hurt? Here is the honest answer. Some people during the process of dying are aware of pain. Patients who were conscious of pain during resuscitation have been found to be more susceptible to post-traumatic stress disorder after surviving, which tells you something important. Some of them survive and still carry it. They come back with the memory of their own death inside them, and it is not always gentle. But here's the other side. Experiences reported by survivors have included observing events without pain or distress. The same moment that is terrifying for one person is apparently transcendent for another. Same cardiac arrest, same clinical event, completely different experience on the inside. There's no predicting which one you get, and there's no way to ask in advance. But the body, it turns out, is not passive during any of this. While the brain is conducting its last electrical concert, the body below the neck is running its own separate program, one that nobody briefed you on. Most startling of the signs of life after death are involuntary movements mediated by the spinal cord. These include arms lifting, fingers flexing, and brief upper limb movements prompted by outside stimuli or a change in oxygenation. Brain-dead patients awaiting transplant surgery can show a physiological motor response more than 24 hours after death, which sometimes surprises and scares even doctors. The rarest of these has a name, the Lazarus sign. It occurs when someone's arms rise briefly and then drop crossed over the chest. This happens because certain neural pathways for reflexes pass through synapses in the spinal column, not the brain, for faster reaction time. The brain is gone. The decision-making apparatus, the seat of everything you ever called yourself, is offline. And the arms rise anyway, cross over the chest anyway, like something reaching for something. Nurses who see it for the first time sometimes have to leave the room. Spinal reflexes and complex movements are considered consistent with the diagnosis of brain death. They are not uncommon, having been reported in 13 to 75% of brain death patients, almost 3/4. That means in most hospital rooms where someone has just been declared dead, the body is still moving. Not because of the person inside it, there is no person inside it anymore, but because the hardware takes time to fully power down, even after the software is gone. For the first few minutes of the post-mortem period, brain cells may survive. The heart can keep beating without its blood supply. A healthy liver continues breaking down alcohol. Your liver is still doing its job, still processing, still regulating, still running its chemical protocols, completely unaware that the larger organization it belonged to has dissolved. Like a department still filing reports after the company went bankrupt. About 2 to 6 hours after death, the body enters rigor mortis. Muscles need ATP to relax. When the body stops producing ATP, calcium leaks into the muscle cells, causing them to lock in a contracted state. As rigor mortis fades after 24 to 72 hours, the relaxation of those stiff muscles can cause a limb to shift or settle, giving the illusion of deliberate movement. Days after death, still moving, still settling, still doing things that look from a distance like intention. None of it is felt, none of it registers. Whatever you were, wherever the you went, it is not in the body doing these things. The body is just finishing its processes, running down like a clock someone forgot to stop winding. But here is the part that stays with me, the part that does not resolve cleanly into comfort or horror. When the brain stops receiving oxygen, its stores of ATP are rapidly depleted. This causes a disruption in the electrical balance of neurons and a massive release of glutamate, an essential excitatory neurotransmitter. Neural circuits appear to shut down at first. Then there is a surge in brain activity, specifically gamma and beta waves. These waves are usually associated with conscious experience. The brain's last act is not silence. It's noise from Organized, structured, perception-linked noise. The same frequencies that carry your waking experience, your dreaming experience, your sense of being somewhere in a body in a world. Those frequencies surge at the end, louder in some cases than they ran during ordinary life. The data are compatible with two patients awakening from their terminal coma by the alarming drop of oxygen and consciously experiencing something before death. Consciously experiencing something before death, after cardiac arrest, in a brain that was supposed to be dark. What were they experiencing? Nobody who has the answer is able to tell us. The ones who came back describe it as peaceful, as vast, as seeing something that didn't have a name. The ones who didn't come back took the answer with them into whatever is on the other side of that final gamma surge, that last organized electrical shout from a system that spent an entire lifetime learning to be you. Does it hurt? Sometimes it seems yes. Does it end? Yes. Does something happen in the space between the two? The data says almost certainly. What that something is, we cannot currently measure. We have the electrical signature of experience without the experience itself, the footprint without the foot. And maybe that's enough to sit with. The knowledge that at the end, the brain doesn't go quietly, it goes the way it lived. Firing, connecting, trying right up until the last possible moment to understand what is happening to it. I understand what happened to me, and I'll tell you this much for free. The last thing I expected was how much it felt like waking up. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper. I've got nowhere to be. I'm already there.